Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Soccer Fitness Wadcast, episode number 1. So, a little update on kind of where Soccer Fitness Wad has been. The first Wadcast was supposed to be out a long, long time ago. Unfortunately, we've been battling some injuries. I just went under the knife to about a week ago for multiple hernia surgery, so that hasn't been pleasant. I knew about the hernias perhaps 2 to 3 weeks beforehand, and not following my doctor's advice, I've been performing some WODs anyways, and still trying to follow up on the goals for my vlog series. So, as you can see, for some of you guys that follow, I was doing a vlog series to follow my progress as I've cleaned up my diet, as I've been doing WODs every day, multiple WODs at times, and been updating you guys probably every other day on my progress. So prior to the injury, I dropped 10 pounds. I was feeling really good. Speed was starting to get back up. My Cooper's time, I shaved off about 30 seconds. So I was making good progress. Unfortunately, I get greedy and I don't follow the advice of my wife or my doctors or my teammates here at Soccer Fitness WOD. So what happened was I did a WOD in the morning that consisted of some weightlifting, some rowing, and some running. And I wanted to do an evening session where I did a mile sprint followed by heavy clean and jerks. Now, I prescribed a weight that I knew it would be heavy but wouldn't be dangerous. And so I performed a mile run and did clean and jerks at about 175, I believe. And so the goal was to do a mile, do 10, and then I felt really good. The time was good, the speed was good. And I knew I probably should have quit just because I did so much work. However, I like to be that guy that just pushes everything to the max. And so I increased the weight to 205, and I did an 800-meter sprint and was going to do 5 clean and jerks. And when I did that, I just knew something was wrong. It almost felt like I strained my groin, and then my stomach was kind of tight. And so hernias didn't really come to my mind. So the next day, I took the next day off. I was doing some WODs, and it just kind of kept lingering around. So I went to my doctor, and she said that looks like you just went through a strain, so maybe keep off of it. That's great. I can deal with the pain. Good to know. I can keep on track. And the pain just never went away. And so they sent me to the surgeon, and lo and behold, I had 2 hernias that had to get repaired. So my training has diminished. However, I've been following the flexible dieting. I want to experiment with that. So obviously, as you follow, Soccer Fitness WOD follows the why am my mind's going blank? The zone diet. Sorry about that. And however, that's a really strict, really great. However, I want to experiment with flexible dieting because it seems to be a little bit easier for athletes to follow. And they'll be at the next WODcast. I'll go into that in more depth. So weight has continued to drop little by little, even without working out. And so that's kind of where I'm at. So that's why, as far as videos and media, that was a big goal of ours, was to, on top of all of our programming and all of the working with athletes, that was really the next step in the progression. However, with injuries and life, it's been a little bit difficult. So this is our first WODcast. Sorry it took so long again. There's going to be some stuff happening that definitely want to catch you guys up on. And so the first WODcast, really what I want to focus on is where we've came, how far we've come, what our philosophy is, to go over some stuff that we've talked about in other vlogs and in other videos. However, kind of get a little bit more in detail and really talk about kind of the philosophy and really kind of talk about where the U.S. soccer is at right now, or what I'm seeing as far as in the youth, and kind of talk about where Soccer Fitness WOD fits into that in our programming, and even get more into detail as far as just overall soccer as well, and kind of what we've been seeing. So that's the agenda for today's WODcast. Next WODcast that will be next week, we'll go into more of a couple of topics. Will be flexible dieting and how much of our programming really applies to youth soccer as far as when you're looking at, under 12s, under 10s, where we've been, kind of long story short, we've been hearing some really kind of horror stories with like under 8 teams doing CrossFit, on top of 2 days of training and having tournaments every weekend. So we want to kind of get into the next podcast will be diet, nutrition, and what should the training progression be as youth players go up in age. So that will be the topic of the next podcast. So we'll have Ellen Senacero on the podcast, who is one of our programs, some of our workouts, and does a lot of the athlete WODs and gives a lot of insight into that. So he'll be here to kind of talk about those subjects, and also to kind of give some insight on how he's felt about the athlete WODs and kind of where his professional career is going. So again, I want to thank you all for tuning in, and we apologize for a huge gap in as far as media. So we're gonna, now that I'm on bed rest for a little bit and I can't really work out, we're hoping to get some more stuff online. So first, I want to start off by saying, want to thank everybody for the positive words on social media. It's really, really interesting that soccer aficionados and fans, we've been getting some support, but it's really interesting that a lot of the support that we've been getting is from just overall fitness community. So bodybuilders, Olympic weightlifters, mixed martial art athletes, they've really have seen our programming through Instagram or Twitter and have really been just amazed at what we're doing. And a lot of the feedback that we get, or a conversation that I get, is that they've trained, some trainers have trained clients who were soccer players, and just this resistance to kind of some of the programming that we're doing, or this hesitancy to not get big, to stay away from weights. And so we've gotten a lot of just great words of encouragement that we've taken this on and really trying to promote a complete package as far as fitness and training. So that's been great, and I just want to again thank all supporters, and not to mention that we are working with athletes currently, and the soccer community has been really supportive. But it's just been a little bit, it's surprising to hear when I talk to certain athletes. I definitely won't say names, but a couple from the MLS and a couple from the USL who, it sounds great in theory, but I think there's just this, I wouldn't say fear, but just that the fact that our kind of programming is really unknown and really different from what they're doing. Really interesting was, I had a conversation with Marcus Philly of the Phoenix Rise and the Grid League. If you haven't seen the Grid League, I highly encourage you to check it out. It's CrossFit, but not really, and it's much more spectator friendly. Matches are 2 hours long, male and female competitors competing alongside each other, and it's a really exciting format. So I highly encourage you guys to check that out when the season starts. I'm really hoping to go see a match in person. It's just really exciting, a really new sport, and I really want to support everything that the Grid is doing, all its athletes, and it's just really awesome to see kind of a sport kind of in its infancy, and it's going to blow up and be huge. So I highly recommend that you guys check that out. Anyways, to get back on track, we had a conversation. I reached out to Marcus Philly due to he's been at the CrossFit Games multiple years, and he was also a Division I goalkeeper at Berkeley. So I really wanted to see his perspective and kind of talk about what we were doing with functional fitness and how we're trying to look at what is the best programming for soccer. And so I reached out to him. And what was really interesting when he talked about his experiences at Berkeley was that, with the the Division I program at Berkeley, although they have tons of trainers and strength and conditioning coaches, it was predominantly all focused on football, which obviously brings in the most money for the college. However, when we talked about what he was doing, he actually had a football strength and conditioning coach, was kind of lower on the podium, new, and so his job was kind of work with the soccer team, and it was mostly kind of football workouts. And so that's where he kind of explained how he fell into love with weightlifting and power cleans, hang cleans, and so forth. And so it's really interesting too, as we discussed, of like what we're seeing maybe in the past 10 years of how do athletes at the collegiate high school level get better prepared for the games, and how do they get fit, what do they do in the off season, and even reaching out to some professional players in the USL of what they're doing. And it's just been really enlightening because when you say, how do I get fit, how do I prepare for the next level, it hasn't been really an answer. Even if you go on YouTube and watch the training sessions of even elite European teams, I mean, you see their workouts, and it's really not really fully functional. Their isolation movements, low intensity, lightweight, and I'm sure there's purpose around that. Strength is maybe not necessarily their biggest goal. However, just that lack of intensity and the idea that you get fit just as you're playing, and multiple preseason games and 2 or 3 a days is really interesting, because I think, as we found out through Soccer Fitness WOD, it's not the most efficient way to get fit and get ready for games and to get ready for a season. So it's been enlightening just to have multiple conversations with various people across the fitness industry, and then soccer coaches and players, and it's really interesting in the sense that I've got a lot of questions as far as we have our individual programming that we do with athletes individually, and then we have our main workouts on the website. And so I get a lot of questions or emails about, well, how does this work? What does this look like? When do I do this? And so, we definitely want to have some videos and have some more. You can find some of the resources online, but really get more into detail of what the programming looks like. And, one of the things that we keep hearing is that the workouts seem a little too demanding. And to add in, to do a WOD on the same day as a training session just seems like too much. And I think that's a really great point. And I'm glad the athletes are asking that question, because you definitely don't want to overwork yourself. One of the things that I've learned through CrossFit, through Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, track and field, as we've done all our experimentation, as you'll see in other videos previously of how we did our research and development, is the idea that when you look at the most elite athletes, overtraining is not so taboo. What I mean by that is that if you look at, for instance, Marcus Philly, who was a soccer player who's now in the Grid League, he trains up to 3 to 4 times a day, every day. And rest days are very minimal. Even a quote rest day, he'll be still doing workouts that are maybe of different intensity, different kind of work capacity demands. And so it's really interesting when you think about soccer, and if you think about training sessions at the elite level, of you're kind of maintaining fitness and maintaining strength, but not necessarily getting better throughout the season. And even in preseason and off-season, it's more of a maintenance and more of you kind of get fit by playing than necessarily training to get better, to get even more fitness and more work capacity prior to the season or during the season. So I think it's one of those fallacies that we're hoping to overcome, is you can get better fitness without overtraining. And overtraining is not something that we should fear, because the way as we talked about before in philosophy, is that we're utilizing multiple movements and not just quote running, not just doing quote leg workouts where you're increasing your aerobic capacity while you're resting other muscle groups and working maybe upper body. For instance, one of the workouts that we suggest on maybe a hard training session is, if you trained, a lot of pro clubs train between 10 to 12. If you want to do a 6 p.m. workout, maybe prior to dinner or after dinner, of doing maybe 5 rounds of, a 200-meter swim and 30 squats, 20 push-ups. So if you look at, you're resting your legs and your joints, but you're still working up that work capacity, and you will be sore in your upper body, but your legs will be fine, so that you're increasing your work capacity, you're increasing your conditioning, and you're increasing your strength. However, you're not overtraining, for instance, maybe a conditioning day you had at your training session. So you're able to increase work capacity. And I think that it's really important because we see, there's a lot of athletes in the field who, if you think about, Busquets, or, you know, there's certain players who just, they cover so much ground, and you just think, wow, their fitness is sublime. And I just feel that we need to get away from that. There's just certain players who have high level conditioning, and that all players can get to that level. And but it's a lot. It takes a lot of work, and you have to be smart, but you also have to trust kind of the system. Um, so that's kind of one of the things that we've been battling, not battling, but been getting feedback on is, that we feel like it's too much, or I'm going to overtrain, or I don't want to. The biggest one from a player who was in Greece was the idea that he just did not want to train um, on days that he had training sessions, or days before or after game days. And so obviously you wouldn't follow the main site's WODs. It would be some individual programming. But as a goalkeeper, however, you can definitely train the day before, um, because I think it's looking at the idea that you're not getting better fitness for a certain game, but just throughout the season continue to increase that work capacity, especially for a goalkeeper. Of You can never be too athletic, you can never jump too high, you can never be too explosive, you can never be too powerful. And so you can train the day before. However, you got to be smart. That training session should be early in the morning. It should be more body weight movements to just work on explosiveness, and maybe some technical skills. But there's nothing wrong with performing a WOD the day before the game. And I'm sure there's going to be some interesting comments as people watch this WODcast, but it's just the truth. And I think that, change is scary, but when just to be completely transparent, fitness and conditioning in soccer is just whack. I mean, it's, excuse my language, but it's just, it's shit. It really is. Um, and with soccer, it seems like, especially with certain leagues, is, you don't want to stray from what you know. And I kind of look at it as what grid or maybe CrossFit went through, or any new training regimen is, oh no, this is scary, it's different, it must be wrong. And it's just not the case. And, our athletes that we're working with are just making great strides, and we're still learning. And I think that's another piece that, some of the feedback is, there'll be certain questions where it's like, this is what we've seen, but we're not quite sure yet. We need to look at 3 to 4 years of data before we can maybe have a more solid answer. And that's scary too, but it's just being transparent that when it comes to fitness and conditioning and strength in our sport, we're still learning. And we're taking it day by day, workout by workout, comment by comment, and just fine tuning and making changes where needed. But we understand it's going to take time, I think, before the soccer community really grasp what we're trying to do and maybe accept it a little bit more. But all I can say is try it out for yourself, and let us know what you think. So maybe with that, we'll kind of go back to this. Kind of ties back into our philosophy, and I've said it on other videos, but I want to reiterate it since it's our first WODcast. Is that we're looking at being innovative. We wanted, the whole goal, going back to when I first started and kind of how this, Soccer Fitness WOD came to be, was I had great technical ability, great individual skills, could read the game, was just the most unathletic person you can see. And it was amazing how far I went in the sport, but I was just really unathletic. And one of the things that when I was training and asking for advice and trying to look for solutions, it was kind of like that. Well, if you're not fast, if you're not strong, it is what it is. You're not genetically gifted, which true genetics comes into play, but there is training. I just knew there was an answer out there that I can get faster, I can get stronger, I can get more conditioned. I just knew there was a way. However, there wasn't an answer out there for me. When you looked at just standard training programs for off season from multiple collegiate teams, it was just basic track work, squats, lunges, just simple exercises that I knew would help, but they're not the answer. And I think that with all the research and development, so we to kind of backtrack, what we wanted to do was, that was kind of the question, is how do we make soccer athletes more athletic, become better overall athletes? How can they become stronger, faster, quicker, more explosive, and have more fitness? And so that was the question, and we, me and my crew, that was the goal, is like, let's solve it. So that's where our philosophy came, is as we did research and looked into all fitness programs, all types of weightlifting, all types of running, conditioning, overall, we looked at everything, experimented with everything, did research into scholarly articles and kind of what did the research say, and also kind of look at just what we saw, what we were doing. And that's where we came up with a philosophy that utilizing functional fitness to better enhance the athleticism of our program, for our athletes. And that's really just the premise of it. To get even a little bit deeper into kind of our philosophy, is that one of the big things, we just produced a GoFundMe page to get some equipment, some cameras, some editing software, so that we can provide you guys all the highest quality that we can. And the reason we did a GoFundMe page is that we're not looking to charge any of our athletes. I'm working with 2 high school players right now doing programming. They're doing 3 workouts a week, and I program their workouts and talk to them and give them advice, and we're doing it totally for free, because we want to give back to our community. The sport has done so much for me and my crew. I mean, it was able to get me out of a rough city, being able to kind of keep me focused on school. I was able to travel across the United States. It's provided so much for me that I want to give back, and I don't want to make this a business. I have my careers in education, and once I'm done with that, as far as when my day is over at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, I'm in here programming WODs, doing research, talking to athletes, doing what I got to do. And it's not a job, it's a hobby. I enjoy doing it, and I don't want to get paid for that, and I want to be able to give back. And I follow all fitness community members, and I'm a big fan of Mark Bell of Super Train Gym in West Sacramento, and he runs a really legit, awesome gym in powerlifting, and he doesn't charge anybody because he makes money throughout his products, his other ventures, and so that's how he gives back. And I kind of follow that same premise of, we're doing this to make soccer players better, especially in the United States. Like we want our country to win a World Cup one day, and Not that we're gonna single-handedly help, but if we can help just a little bit, that's what it's all about. Or if we can help a kid who is just on the brink of getting a D1 scholarship, we want to be able to help that athlete get to that level and not charge him. That's not our goal. So that's another big part of our philosophy is offering free programming. Like, I enjoy when I have emails in my inbox of asking questions about our programming, or what does, based on what their levels are, what should they work on. Like, I love answering those emails. I love having conversations with collegiate professional athletes to pick their brain, let them pick my brain, and so forth. So that's really what it's all about. And so that's a big part of philosophy is this is a free service. You know and at some point, hey, if we get sponsored, that's a whole different deal. But we we are looking to not charge any of our athletes. This is something to help the soccer community, um, and it is what it is. And honestly, we lost members of our team because the idea that we didn't have an end goal of making money, really bothered them. And maybe it's just not the smartest economic choice we can make. And I'm sure my wife would love to have some extra money, but it's not the goal. And I think that this work, doing this, just provides me happiness. I enjoy it. I love the game. And um, that's where I get paid through the enjoyment of it. So that's like another big aspect of her philosophy. So with that in mind, kind of where we've kind of come from, we're approaching our 200th programmed WOD, and prior to programming WODs on our website to where people can follow the workouts and complete them, we spent about 2 to 3 years just researching into what does training look like for a soccer player. And so, a big proponent of it was functional fitness. When CrossFit came out, grid, there are all kinds of different variations. Um, that was a huge component. And one of the questions I asked is, well, is this CrossFit soccer per se? Should you be an affiliate? And the answer is really no. I love CrossFit and I love what they're doing. However, when you look at what their philosophy is, it's preparing for the unknowable. Not you know your overall athleticism, and you're trying to be prepared for anything that could happen. Where with us, we have specific goals in mind. We want to get faster, stronger for our sport. And so just that complication right there is why we're not CrossFit. And even then, we're not totally functional fitness either. We're doing a lot of track like workouts. I mean, they really vary, day by day, workout by workout. But functional fitness is a huge part of our programming, because those compound movements at high intensity just really reflects our game more often. So that's we did a lot of research in that area, and also powerlifting as well. You know, as Mark Bell loves to say, strength is never a weakness, and I wholeheartedly agree. I think that soccer trainers almost look at strength as well, as long as you don't get too big, or it's not vitally important, but being strong is what's going to provide longevity in the career. And one of the things that when you think of Perlo or Gerard, who have had long careers, or Clarence Seedorf is one of my favorite. I mean, the dude is freaking jacked. I mean, he's jacked as fuck, and he's kind of the body type that we think about when we follow a program. You're going to gain a little bit of muscle. You're going to get a little bit more defined. But that strength and that muscle mass has also allowed him to have longevity in the career. And so that's a big proponent. So, we've jumped into powerlifting and just looking at, how can we add a lot of strength. And, you know, there's something too about when you get to that level of strength and being on the field, it gives you this confidence. I can't explain it, but even some of our athletes are starting to experience it, where you just feel like you own the field, and I agree. Like you just feel bad as fuck when you're strong and you know you could run forever, and you know you look across the field, you know no one's gonna be more fit than you, and no one's as strong as you, no one's as quick. I mean, it just gives you this total confidence on top of all the skill that you have as a player already. So that's some of the things that we look at, and that's some of our philosophies. And as far as our vision, we kind of talked about offering free programming. But the other step in our vision is that you know we want to provide a forum for discussion just in soccer in general. I think that when I think about when I was 15 to 16, English Premier League games weren't televised on national television. It was hard to see, Brazil play, or, how to record games, or, it was now there's, our kids are exposed to soccer on a daily basis, and they're able to see the best players in the world, on week by week. And so we want to have a forum for discussion to where we could start trading ideas, and kind of talk about what can we do to increase the U.S. soccer ability in general. Um, I have very unique views on U.S. soccer, MLS, and kind of like coaching in general, and so I would love to kind of have a forum for that. Um, and I think right now the forum is just overall the fitness. I saw a picture, it drove me crazy, but I believe it was Manchester City. They had a YouTube clip and they were training, but the thumbnail showed Frank Lampard. He was doing squats with like 50 pounds, and then you had other players behind him doing some like rope work and these little drills, and it was just like, what the fuck? Like, you're in preseason trying to get fit, and then this is what you're working on. And then it's one thing to do squats at 50 pounds. Like, we prescribe workouts with light weight, but low intensity, low rep ranges. And so it bothers me because, these trainers are getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. And what they're having their athletes do is not necessarily getting them more prepared for the games, and it's not necessarily adding longevity to their career either. And so, I think that, we're definitely, we try to be positive, and we're not here to attack, and I'm not here to attack Manchester City or their coaching staff, but just the overall idea of what soccer fitness is. It drives me crazy because I think that it's just something that hasn't been looked at close enough. Um, you know, some of the conditioning drills, the fitness drills, they're so whack. They are, and they're not providing any, maybe a little bit of aerobic conditioning, but it's not enough to really increase anything. And so I get it, during the season you're trying to maintain, but even as maintenance, I don't believe it's really assisting in that. And so, as we continue to kind of have the forums and provide more media and more videos, you'll see kind of our team discuss and really show with proof of why our programming works. And yes, it's different, but I'm fucking glad it is, because what I see strength and conditioning coaches doing in soccer is just, it is beyond me. It's not, I just don't see what the results are. And maybe if I had more clear definition of what their goals were, and maybe if that was explained to me, maybe, and who am I, right, to to deserve that? But it doesn't make sense. And so, and then when I think of domestically, I'm sure I'll get a lot of shit for this, but what I see in our coaching, in our youth system here in the U.S., is just utterly, I know coaches are in it for the right reasons, but the coaching at the youth level in this country is fucking garbage. There's no words around it. The teams that are solid overseas, they take their youth coaching very seriously. And it is not easy to be a youth coach. And, I was approached by a club team here in California, under 15 girls team. They were ranked statewide, I believe, seventh at one time, and they've kind of dropped off. And so, I agreed to, jump on board and get hired. And, one, because I want to give back to the community. I know some of the girls, I've taught them, or I know their family. But another reason was just to see what others are doing, what are coaches doing out there, and just to get a little bit more insight into that. And we play in the NPL, and it's a really competitive league. We played against top 10 teams in the state, and I've seen some good coaches at this high level, but I've also seen some really bad coaches. And what's really disturbing is the coaches in the between under 5 to under 12 is just atrocious. Some of the things that I'm saying, the things that I hear on the field, it's not surprising that we're still trying to catch up. And we see the success of the women's soccer team, they won the World Cup. But when you think about how much access to sports that our country's girls have, and most girls, if they want to play a certain sport, they're able to. We encourage it overall as a society, where I think other countries are kind of catching up. So we've been ahead of the ball for a while. But even then, other countries are trying to catch up, even in the women's leagues. But just overall, we're so behind in technical ability, understanding the game, and it's really no one's fault per se. Like I said, all coaches are in it for the right reasons, or I hope they are. But I think it starts from the top, is being clear on accreditation for coaches. What is the goal as far as the U.S. Soccer Federation? What's the progression of skills? One of the things that I believe it was Tab Ramos. I may be wrong, so don't quote me. But he just passed a rule of keeping the field small at a certain age level, which encourages more of that tactical skill, the athletic, not the athletic ability, just individual skill, reading the game. And so I saw on beIN Sports a couple weeks ago where the best academies, Barcelona, Real Madrid, their under 12 boys had a tournament, and they were on a small field. It was 5 against 5, and it's weird because when I was 12 years old, we were probably on a large field by that time. But if you think about 5-on-5, small field, the speed of play is quick. You're getting multiple touches on the ball. You got to think quicker. And so, they're doing that. That's why their athletes, their players are just above and beyond us as far as skill and technical ability. And that's why we're behind the ball. It's just little decisions like that from their country's federation in charge of soccer. It makes a world of a difference. And so, not to kind of deviate too far from, our what we're here to talk about as far as our training program. However, it's that same mentality, I think, with that is kind of really comparable to the mentality as far as our training programs and how kids are getting fit. And, it's interesting to hear some of the feedback as far as Soccer Fitness WOD may be having overtraining issues with our programming. But, I've seen 8-year-old teams who practice twice a week. They do CrossFit once a week, and they're having 2 games every weekend. That is overtraining. That's going to lead to injury. Doing even if it's a modified WOD that's only 30 minutes long, and maybe focusing more on the recovery as far as our yoga sessions, our recovery skills, that's not overtraining. But when you're playing a tournament every weekend and you're not working on skills, really, when you think about it, kids that are 8 years old, 10 years old, they need to be working on skills. They need way more practice time than games. And that kind of goes along with our training is, if you don't want to follow our programming every day, that's fine. But when you do our programming at a certain schedule and be consistent, you're going to see results. And I think it's the same thing when you look at training for young kids is more training, you're going to get better results than having multiple games. And so, I think U.S. soccer, it's made some growth, but we still have a long way to go, and it's not the athlete's fault. Our U.S. Soccer Federation, I think, needs to take a long look at, what their coaching licensing looks like, how do you become a coach, and really putting more of an emphasis on the youth coaches. There's certain technical abilities that a soccer player should have by the time he's 12, 15, and you know a lot of times it's even in the MLS. I love the MLS. I'm a big fan, and I'm hoping Sac Republic gets in there. And congratulations to LA for getting another team in the MLS. But technically and skill wise, we're the games sometimes are really really sloppy. We have strong players, athletic players, and but God, they can't keep possession to save their life. Where in the USL, you'll have players that aren't fast, that aren't strong, that are maybe small, but their technical ability is a lot higher. And so that's where our programming can support them, is helping them get that athletic ability to kind of be prepared for the MLS. But, you know, I'm a big fan of our country. I want to see us win the World Cup one day. But I think some of the changes that trying to being innovative like we are with fitness is, I think, where the U.S. Soccer Federation needs to do as far as their whole coaching system and kind of what they're doing. And, I was really a big fan when Jurgen Klinsmann came on board, and it's been just kind of disappointing to kind of see the results. But I also understand kind of some of the decisions he's making. Um, there's a reason why he wants our players to play in Europe. It is a faster game out there. It helps better prepare you for, that world stage, and you know, the MLS just still has some ways to go. And the one of the things I'm just I find disappointing is the fact that a lot of MLS teams just can't keep possession. They don't value the ball, and then we see that kind of transition over into our national team where they can't keep possession, to save their lives. And it's not, and that's the thing, it's not the athlete's fault, it's the coaching fault. And, MLS coaches, some of the decisions, some of the style, the tactics, I highly disagree with, but that's a discussion for another podcast where hopefully we get a coach on here. But kind of like I said, it really coincides, the fitness and the conditioning, the programming that we're doing. Some of the things that we're trying to change really coincides with just the overall game that we're seeing, in this country. So, that's kind of where we're at. I'm having a ball doing this shit. Like, it's funny. My wife and I, we're both in education, and we have a young daughter, and we'll get here and we're tired, but, I just love programming a workout, looking at the notes, the research, and looking at the progression of, where we need to be, where should the athletes be, how are we going to gauge, what does the data say. I mean, I love every minute of it, and it's not work. And, even my wife has noticed that, I'm happy, I'm enjoying this. And, I'm hoping with the GoFundMe, like, we'll definitely, a lot of thanks to you that if you do decide to donate, but, putting the money just right back into what we're doing. And, I'm hoping that, in a few years we have a lot of our athletes, making tremendous strides in the sport. And, hopefully we have some athletes, move up to the collegiate level, the pro level. And that's what it's all about, is just, encouraging others and you know, supporting kids and adults and whoever, just, being the best that they can in this sport. The sport is, it's the world's game, and, I love it, and a lot of people love it. And, it's just, trying to make positive, just be a positive person, and just do the best I can to help others. And that's what me and my team are doing. And, just trying to give back. That's really what it's all about. And so, if any of you out there have questions or comments or need help with anything, or you want to get in contact with somebody, if there's a way that we can help you, we will. Email us at questions@SoccerFitnessWOD.com. You can leave a comment below and on YouTube. So yeah, we highly encourage you guys to contact us with anything. If you're interested in being on a WODcast, let us know. At this point, we don't have people banging down our doors to get on a WODcast, but we're hoping to have some pretty cool guests along the way. And before we leave, just kind of give a shout out to some people who've really been supportive, throughout this journey. Obviously our family or significant others, my wife Jamie. There's too many to count. Our administration at school just giving us time to work on this, and my teammates Alan, Steve, for putting in the time, the effort. Shout out to Marcus Philly for taking time out of his busy schedule to kind of support us and have these good conversations. Shout out to Mary Person. She's a strength and conditioning coach with Haiti's women's national team, and she's been really supportive, and it's she's doing some really big things out there. So shout out to her, and shout out to University of Bridgeport women's soccer team. They came in third place. I may be wrong about that in the D2 Division II tournament. They've been really supportive, especially on social media, and they have a great team out there, great program. So make sure you check them out. So yeah, I just want to thank everybody who's just been positive. I'm a big believer in being around like-minded people, as Mark Bell would say, and appreciate the positivity. And yeah, man, let's keep this shit going. Let's make some impacts in this game. And so hit us up. Y'all have a good night. Appreciate all the love. Hit us up if you have any questions or comments. All right, later.